I am here with Rocco Paolucci for the first ever podcast of martinsblogs.com. And today we're going to be looking at the issue of animal rights. Uh, this issue came up really as a result of a couple blogs past regarding the differences between being human, animals, and AI robots. Um, Rocky made a few comments about that, and as a result, he has inspired me to take a deeper look at animal rights. And perhaps there are things that we take for granted about animals. And I think Rocky may have some good insights. We may or may not agree with what Rocky is saying, uh, but let's listen and we'll have a very good conversation. Uh, Rocky has had quite a long experience in his career. He's spent a number of years in Bell Labs as a systems engineer and in Verizon, what is now Verizon. He also has taught in academia at university. He's got a doctorate, a couple masters. So he's got a very, very interesting background. And in the last decade or so, he's become very involved in animal rights. So, Rocky, given your initial experience in technology, now you're in a whole different area. Tell us a little bit about that, how you evolved from uh, where you were to where you are now, being a vegan and being very involved with animal rights.
Yeah, well, it's interesting you should mention a technology component as part of this because looking back and reflecting on it, I think what happened is over as time went on, my years in technology and industry, I was always interested in the human factor, how technology was affecting humans and how humans use technology. And I was always a very big proponent. And that's how I got interested in the idea of using technology for learning and education, which got me into academia. So I left industry to really explore because I understand the power of technology, and I understood that it could be a great benefit uh, for people. And so today, when I first started 30 years ago looking at technology and learning and education, it was the internet didn't even exist. I think we had just got email. Um, But as time went on, online education became very, very important. And throughout this process, I began to really understand how the promise of technology in time, as time went on, really never lived up to its potential. And I really understood the fact that the human factor really plays a big part. In the beginning, the internet was supposed to be this technology that allows people to to learn and express themselves and connect with people. All the benefits really turned out, as we look back, into getting co-opted by the commercial side of it, uh, the profit side of it, and today we see that it's become a surveillance tool, basically to stifle free speech. But that's a little bit of a side tangent. So what really then got me thinking about animals was the fact that I started to understand what is it about humans that you know takes something that originally was supposed to be a benefit and turns it into something that ultimately is not necessarily used for good. And so that got me into exploring human nature. And as I understand, began reading about human nature and so on and so forth, I got interested in how we different from other animals. And that was basically on one aspect of it. The other aspect of it was um, I adopted a dog. Her name is Isabella. I call her Bella. She's over 15 now. She's older. That was about 15 years ago, and my perception of animals changed drastically in
Huh.
in adopting her. Um, in the first couple of years, just look at these two things being in parallel. I was trying to understand human nature on the one side, and on the other side, I began spending time with this creature. And my perception of animals at that time, even though I was a vegetarian for about 30 years, it was mostly, in the idea of protecting life, it was mostly like a theoretical kind of a thing, as an ethical thing. And it mostly animals and protecting animals was more like protecting wildlife and protecting cats and dogs, domesticated animals. It really was never fully explored. But as I began to live with Bella more and more, I began to understand the personality of this little creature. And the more I read about it, being an analytical kind of a guy, the more I researched it, the more I got interested in animals and animal rights. And this was still when I was teaching. And then it came a time when I was about 55 where I basically said, you know what? I think I'm wasting my time. I really, my use of technology for learning and education, uh, I began to understand that it was a waste of time because I began to understand human nature and I began to become disillusioned with human nature. I really began to understand that, uh, to certain aspects or extent, humans were not the best use of my time. That I began to say, maybe I should devote more of my time in helping these innocent creatures, animals, rather than helping people. And I'll go back to that later on. Maybe you'll have some questions about it. But anyway, so I decided to leave academia and to start my own, to devote my time full time to helping animals. And originally, I created a foundation I called it the Animal Advocacy Foundation, animaladvocacy.us, where I do all my online advocacy. But initially I was, trying to help, you know, animal causes like wildlife, the elephants, the, you know, and all that, and helping the ASPCA and all that. But then I began doing a lot of research, and all of a sudden I said there is this whole host of animals called, chickens and pigs and cows, domesticated farmed animals that are absolutely invisible to us. And that got me started on another side of animal rights, the veganism side. And I began to really understand that there was this whole hidden life invisible to us humans, except for the pets that we have, dogs and cats that even today are not very well treated, but better treated than other animals. And so I got interested in how animals were used in a laboratory for experiments, um, for like in entertainment, like zoos and circuses. And so all of a sudden, I became very, very concerned about the lives of animals, and that's when I really began to seriously um, change my life, and it changed my life drastically. So anyway, in a nutshell, that's where it all began.
Yes, quite a journey that you've had, and it sounds like, you became, more and more sensitive to the issue as time went on. You were first, realized that your dog Bella, and it became very sensitive to her needs, and then later on became sensitive to the needs of other animals. Sounds something like that.
Yeah.
Um, would you say your motivation is like more compassion related, or is it some other form of motivation that
Yeah,
pushed you
I,
into
I think
this?
it's both. I think it's compassion. I mean, to me, compassion is a big component of it. But I also, being a coming from the science and technology side, I began exploring the 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 mental cognitive aspect of animals, and I've done a lot of research on it. And to me, what what's happened over the last 20 or 30 years is really remarkable. For a long time, animals were seen as not being dumb or not have any feelings, and now the body of research is overwhelming. I mean, you have people like I think I mentioned to you, Franz de Waal, the primatologist, who's done a tremendous amount of work on understanding, especially primates, monkeys and chimpanzees and orangutans and bonobos and gorillas. Chimpanzees have a 98.9 common DNA with humans. Bonobos almost the same. Bonobos are, matriarchal in nature, very peaceful. Chimpanzees are patriarchal, hierarchical, and very violent at times. You have people like Carl Safina, who studies fish sentience. You have other individuals as well, and the the research is very clear. Animals are very they feel pain, they feel love, they are family oriented depending on the animal, um, and they're very smart. uh, you know uh, Dogs have, actually, pigs have the intelligence of a 2-year-old. Pigs have been taught to use computers, and chimpanzees have gifts and memory that humans cannot even compare to. So if you read the literature, it's it's just shattered my illusion that animals were dumb or that didn't have feelings. And anybody who's had a quote unquote a pet or a companion animal, a dog or a cat, especially dogs, you can see they have personalities, especially those that have multiple dogs. And so to me, the idea of, well, what's a personality? It's a person, but they're treated like objects. Animals are treated like property today. Doesn't matter what the animal is. So there is no difference in terms of the law, whether it's a chair that you own, or a dog, or a pig, or an elephant. They're property. And
Would you say there have been some reforms, or there are laws on the books about animal cruelty? You can't go and just kill a dog, for example. If you're found doing that, you'd be violating a law. I mean, would you agree there have been some reforms that way in society?
yeah, there's been animal welfare laws. They get updated pretty regularly. I think companion animals are treated better, even though, as I said, there is nothing that stops you from taking your beloved dog, take it to a vet, and have him euthanized, or her. Nothing stops you from doing that. Now, if you hit a dog or whatever, especially, there have been instances where people have killed dogs or cats or other animals, and the law really rarely get enforced, and if they do get enforced, they're a slap on the wrist. Um,
Right.
but
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 there are laws, and there has been reforms.
yeah,
You
well,
you would
yeah, and
agree. Okay.
that falls under the umbrella of animal welfare. Okay, so there's animal
Well
welfare. Go ahead.
well, sure, yeah, right. Animal
Go ahead. What were you
welfare
going to
law.
say?
Well, I wanted to going back to what you were saying before about the intelligence of animals, and I think, uh, all life forms have intelligence, even an amoeba in a petri dish that's being studied by scientists. It has a certain intelligence where it goes after um, the nutrients it needs and avoids the toxins. Um, I had written a previous post called "Reba the Amoeba," where I spoke about how that intelligence that all life forms have, and then as more complicated life forms, they have what we would might call higher levels of intelligence. But intelligence alone um, doesn't necessarily make a life form. AI is intelligent right now, very intelligent, but it isn't alive. Um, Animals, including humans, have intelligence, but they also have that thing that makes us alive, that quest for survival. Um,
Well,
so
let me go ahead.
my
Go ahead.
question is my question is this: the differences between humans and animals, to me, and let me know what your thoughts are on this. The humans have a more complex view of the world, um, even much more than, say, a chimpanzee. And you can say, well, how do you know that? Well, I don't, other than the behavior. The chimpanzees have not changed their technology much over thousands of years. Maybe they'll do it soon. I don't know, but they haven't now. Um, Humans have had this ability to look at the world and shape it more to the in a way that is beneficial, at least that they believe is beneficial. And technology has improved by leaps and bounds. So if you look at technology, humans are way above or way advanced than animals. Um, so is that alone the reason why we might like make a distinction between humans and animals? And that I think that's the heart of what you're getting at is, you don't necessarily want to make a distinction, but there are distinctions if you look down uh, the animal uh, different divisions. You're going to treat a chimpanzee differently than, say, you would treat a rat. And we make those humans make those judgments because we can make those judgments. I don't think chimpanzees are all that concerned about what the differences are between humans and, say, rats or insects. Um, so I don't know what would you say to that? The fact that humans have this mind that can make these distinctions and these judgments, and it doesn't appear that even some species like a chimpanzee, a great ape, can do the same thing. They kind of uh, chill out in their own little forest, I guess. So, what would you say to that,
Well,
Rocky?
I agree. Uh, I mean, we talked about intelligence, and the reason why I brought it up is because I was interested in it. But in a way, it's irrelevant. The idea is what's important is sentience. Okay, these are sentient beings, meaning they feel pain, they feel joy, and they get scared. I mean, you want to do an experiment? It just occurred to me not too long ago, even though I've been reading a lot. So you take your regular insect in your house, take an ant or a fly or even a fruit fly. You try to get close to that ant or that fly. What does it do?
Oh,
Try to
it'll try
grab.
to avoid you. Yeah,
Why? Why? Why are they trying to avoid you?
it doesn't want to get killed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that in itself is intelligence. I mean, if you want to talk about
Yes. I
intelligence,
agree.
self
Absolutely agree.
self preservation. But really, it's
But does
sentience.
that fruit fly make a distinction about other animals and other insects as a
Well,
have a whole?
I was getting to that. It really that
Oh,
again,
okay.
it's irrelevant. It's irrelevant.
It's
First of
irrelevant.
all,
Okay.
I I I I don't want to talk. I mean, first of all, even the idea of intelligence is one of degree. Okay, there are certain
Right.
species that are more intelligent than others, but they're all intelligent. You said the amoeba is intelligent. The other thing that's important is self awareness. Now, there is such a thing as called the mirror test that I've been given. I don't know if you're familiar with the mirror test with animals.
Very familiar. Yes.
Okay, so even octopuses have passed the mirror test.
Right.
Elephants have, primates have, many different species have. they're self-aware. They are aware of their environment. So like a fruit fly or an ant, they're aware of. They try to escape. They're aware of what's going on around them.
But they would never pass the mirror test, though.
Yeah, but
Those
I'm
only
just
appear.
saying the mirror test is a manufactured test for humans to show that there are some species that are more intelligent than others, and that
Well,
there are some
they haven't.
species. It's a very speciesist test. I mean, I don't know if you heard of the term speciesism, which is
Yes.
synonymous to racism. So 99.9% of humans are speciesists. They believe that humans are superior. And the reason why we're superior, apparently, is because we're more intelligent. Now, let's go back to technology and intelligence. Now, I'm going to make a statement which is going to shock you. That's one of the reasons why I moved away from technology, I'm very against technology because I think technology solves one problem and creates 10. So technology is not really a measure of intelligence. It's the opposite. So that the more technology we create, humans create, the more we're going to self-destruct. Now that might seem shocking to you, and
I think
actually
a
the
lot of people
Unabomber,
worry about that.
the Unabomber actually came to that conclusion. That's one of the reasons that he was an eco-terrorist, um, who basically blew up people's scientists because, and he was a PhD from Berkeley. He was a professor in physics, and he came to the conclusion that technology was destroying the world. And in his deluded mind, he began killing or maiming scientists who were inventing these things. But forget about that. I believe technology is a problem. Now, you name me one technology that has made life better for humans. Name one.
Well, the microwave. I can heat up my
Eh,
coffee this morning
How
very
good is that?
easily.
How good is that food that you're heating up in
It's
general?
coffee. The coffee
Not just
grains?
coffee, but in
Yeah.
general, microwave is invented to what? Not cook fresh food, fresh vegetables. To what? Freeze and unfreeze stuff, right?
And heat things up. Sure, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Heat
You can
things up.
heat up vegetables in a microwave,
Or you
yes.
take the
But I'm not.
computer once again. Take the
Yeah,
internet. Take take the car. Take
yeah.
anything. I really recommend this article for you. You may want to do a blog on it. It's by Jared Diamond, who still lives. He wrote, I forgot the name of it, but his thesis is that agriculture in general, when humans moved away from the forest into creating agriculture, it is when we descended into where we are going, which is the extinction of the species. He basically
Yeah,
said that.
go
Go
ahead.
ahead. No, I was going to say he basically
I
said as
did
soon
read
as
an article about that, where he said, maybe we were better off in a hunter-gatherer stage.
exactly. So you know about
Because
that.
once we went into agriculture, there were all kinds of problems created within society.
Yeah, because you
You had
began
rulers, etcetera. Yeah.
exactly.
We
So the idea of then storing food, farming, began a cycle of getting more and more and more. Now, here's something else for you. Uh, 80 almost 80% of all the grain, the soy and the corn and all that we grow today is responsible for deforestation of all the Amazon and all the other places. 75 to 80% is given to feed animals in factories, chickens, pigs, and cows. So we take that grain that is very good to eat, and people are starving, and we give it to animals to fatten them up so that we can kill them and eat the meat.
Right.
Now,
And
now that
okay,
causes tremendous damage to the environment. Factory farming is responsible for more greenhouse gases than fossil fuels, uh, especially beef. And all of that. If you look at the environmental, the pollution in the rivers, all that manure gets dumped in rivers and lakes. If you look at all the damage that is done by animal agriculture simply because you want to eat their flesh, And by the way, why is it, uh, you know, people eat meat to begin with, which is antithetical to our physiological makeup? Humans are not meant to be omnivores or carnivores. They're meant to be herbivores. The research is clear on that,
So let me bring you
which
back
brings
to
us to
what you were
veganism.
just saying. So what would be the vision then of say animal rights, um, that would what would be the change in vision?
Yeah.
Uh,
So that's a great question. So you have a spectrum from the animal welfare folks, okay? Like we mentioned, that trying to make life better for animals in general, whether they're farmed animals by having cage-free, eggs, or not putting pigs in crates and holding them there, what are called gestation crates, so that they can they can feed the little piglets without moving around for weeks and months at a time, and all of that. But and then on the other side of the spectrum are the animal liberationists, okay, where basically they say that animals are not our property, and we should not lock them up, we should not eat them, they should be free to live with in their nature, in nature. They're not ours, okay, to exploit, to entertain us, to feed us. And so, in general, in that I'm in that end of the spectrum. And then in animal liberation, uh, people are trying to change the laws to free animals from zoos, from being researched on and tested on with animal experiments, from factory farms. And then there are people that are in direct action, people that believe in actually taking steps, not necessarily violent towards humans, but causing a ruckus, so to speak, and taking direct action to free animals. So you find people that go to factory farms and try to rescue animals that are sick, pigs, chickens. There are people that go to fur farms that release minks and burn the farm, so that they don't have the ability uh, to do that anymore. Um, so there is an organization called the Animal Liberation Front, um, which is very active all over the world, that do these kinds of things. They're anonymous. Actually, believe it or not, they're deemed to be terrorists. There are one or two people in the top 10 FBI list of most wanted are what are called animal rights liberationists. They've deemed Animal Liberation Front to be a terrorist organization in the same vein as Al Qaeda, ISIS, or Hamas. And actually, they're afraid. They're afraid of people seeing. So they're undercover investigators. They go out there and they take films, especially with the internet, and So I can't tell you the number of times I post things online and they get censored and they get shadow banned. Um, so animal agriculture is a very, very important part of the economy and the culture. And they don't want people to see how we're treating these creatures. And you have to remind you this, these are not our creatures. They were not made by us. See, these are not chairs or sofas that we can go ahead and destroy. These are creatures of God's creatures. And we have no right whatsoever, absolutely none, to do what we do to them. I mean, it's just plain simple.
yeah, I can see that you have that very strong compassion, if you will, for these animals. Um, but what I'd ask you, and perhaps you can give some better understanding. Um, uh, if one looks at the animal kingdom, including humans, there's a food chain. So animals eat other animals all the way down the line. Big fish eat little fish, etc. How would animal activists respond to that? That it isn't just humans that mistreat other animals. Animals mistreat other animals.
Okay.
The lion eats uh, a smaller animal, and it goes
Okay, first
down
of
the
all,
line.
the overwhelming majority of animals are herbivores in general. Okay, even the primates, chimpanzees and bonobos are vegetarians. I- I-
Right.
even some primates eat some meat, but very little meat. Um, so the idea of the food chain is again, it's I think it's a ridiculous argument. But let me address it like this. Um, have you ever seen an animal and I hate to call it the wild because there's nothing wild about it. There's more wilderness going on in some of these inner cities than in nature. But have you ever seen a wild animal be obese or fat?
No, not a wild animal, no.
Why?
Domesticated animals.
No, but
That's
why aren't they?
a good question. I would think, it's difficult to get their daily nutrients. So, and
I
they
think
don't
I
over
think I think I think what it is that they are satisfied once they're full. In other words,
okay,
a lion will attack you in the wild if he's really hungry. But if he's satiated, he's not going to hurt you.
right. So are you implying that somehow animals are more virtuous than humans? Or
Absolutely.
oh,
So
okay.
when you take a look at humans, especially in the Western world, almost 50, 60% are obese, mortally obese. Why? Because we're never have enough. We're see. This is what I'm saying. Understanding you by understanding animal nature, you understand human nature. And this is the pessimist in me, and
Right.
the the idea that humans, you may put it in religious term, have an original sin, and the original sin is that we're never satisfied.
Well, that's true, and I think perhaps let me suggest it's because of the fact that we have this sense of self that we compare to others, and the complex ability to imagine our future welfare and our past, and I think that has a lot to do with the fact that we tend to be not satisfied. Um, it reminds me a couple posts ago I wrote about that quote from Walt Whitman, who said, "I looked long
Exactly.
and long at the animals. They were so placid and self-contained." And they are, and I I would suggest it's because they don't have this ability that humans have. It's not necessarily they're good or bad, it's that they don't have that complex ability to create this world in front of them that they want more. Um, uh, the essence of Buddhism is actually being able to get to handle that desire.
Exactly. And
How
that's
do
one of
you
the
how
reasons
do you
why. Yeah, that's
yeah,
one of the other things that I forgot to mention to you is that going back 20 some years ago, I began doing some reading in Buddhism, and that got me into the vegetarian area. But what you just said is exactly right. You see, there is something I think if you want to speak it, put it in terms of biological terms, there's something in the DNA of the human that
right,
something went wrong. I mean, you talk about the
okay,
programming, we talk about the algorithm. Okay,
right,
the algorithm. There's something wrong with the algorithm, and we're in a downward spiral where we're going to become extinct. And we've only been around 200,000 years, Homo sapiens, and there is no assurance that we're going to survive as a species. And my theory is we're not. That we're just a blip in the millennia before us and after us. So I believe that unless there is a significant correction. So going back to what we were saying, so what do you think? What do animal rights people want to accomplish? Through veganism or whatever. We're saying stop this madness. You're not only you you're killing these innocent creatures, you're killing the planet, and you're killing yourself. I mean, almost all the illnesses that exist today are due to eating animal products, the cancers, the heart diseases, all of that. And we're not meant to eat meat. Just think about it. When you see a piece of flesh, animal flesh, why don't you eat it? Why don't humans eat it? They have to cook it. Why do they have? I mean, if you were carnivorous, you would eat it. Why do we
If you
have
were
to cook
hungry
meat?
enough, you would eat it.
Huh? If
If
you
you were
ate,
hungry enough, you would eat it. But
but you get sick.
yeah, what would you say then to someone who says, "Well, we did evolve from the hunter-gatherer stage, not evolve, but we
But then again, if you
changed."
look, if you look at the, if you look at that research, and there was very little meat that was eaten by the prehistoric folks. I mean, as I said, they only hunted what they needed for the day. They weren't out there hoarding or saving or whatever. They went out there and said, "What are we going to eat today?" There are still tribes today. I mean, almost prehistoric tribes, and like in the Amazons that don't eat meat, that are just hunter gatherers, and they just go out there and they forage and they eat plants or whatever is around, fruits, and all of that. And so, my vision is for us to. We're never going to get back to the prehistoric era. I mean, if it was up to me, I would never have left the cave. Never. Okay. I think we should go back to that. I really believe that we should live like in monastic, very simple lifestyles. And I don't mean mandating it. I mean like from an inner self saying, this is way out of line. We need to live a very simple, natural life. And so, if nothing else, veganism and the animal rights movement are trying to get us back to some really basic stuff. But part of it is what it means to be human. And again, to be to be quite frank with you, I mean, a dog knows as we're saying, what a dog is. They're happy to be dogs. They get depressed because they're domesticated. But an ant or a fly, they say, okay, this is me. I live for 2 days and that's it. Humans can't tell you why they're here. If you ask them why are you here? What is it that you want to do? Oh, I want to be an engineer. That's not the question. What is humanity here to do? Now, if you ask the religious people, they will tell you we're trying to make progress. We're trying to improve life. I mean, tell me, how is life better today than it was 100 years ago, 200 years ago?
Right. Well, humans can do that. Humans can ask those questions, but, can an ant ask those questions?
But why is it you have to ask?
Well, you were
The
suggesting
thing is,
to ask
the
the
fact that
question.
you're asking, that means you don't know.
Well, that's true. Humans don't know because they have all these other things going on, and then they
Exactly.
ask that question. Yeah, yeah.
So really, the
It's
problem
a
with you is,
conundrum.
what Buddhism says is a real problem. The mind. The mind is the problem. The mind
It
is
Right. Yeah,
insatiable.
yeah. No, it's true. Yeah. Quieting the mind is very important because it's always going, 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 hopping
Exactly.
around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just to get back to the question, I don't have I mean, I have my own opinions. There are some people that I mean, even with the animal rights movement, probably what a lot of what I'm saying, probably they wouldn't agree. But the fact that I come from a science and technology background sort of leads me to believe that there's something wrong with human nature. Especially if you look at what's happening, we're creating. Going back to technology, we're creating these technologies that are more and more destructive. And given human nature, say we that's going back to AI. We haven't touched upon that. I mean, the whole idea of AI is really to get rid of the self. The proponents of AI is really what progressivism is all about, meaning that they believe that humans are created in the image of God. So the religious folks believe in like a Jesus Christ or whatever and redemption. And then you have the atheists that believe that we recreate ourselves, that we can become like semi cyborgs, that we can get rid of the flesh, we can get rid of the animal nature. Okay, the idea is they want to get rid of. They know that we're animals, and they know that we're mortals and that we have flesh and we have problems. So they want to create this utopia through the robots and the AI. So you have the Elon Musks that are trying to implant, um, you know, uh, chips in the brain after killing thousands of chimpanzees in experiments, horrendous experiments. He just got clearance to do that with humans now. Um, so the idea of AI is to recreate humanity in the likeness of immortal beings, and they want to be gods. See, these people, So you have the religious people that say the imago Dei, that that people, humans, are different than animals because they're created in the image of God. And I asked them, what does God look like?
So you're bringing up some very interesting issues here. I've never thought of it that way, especially with AI and there are people who do see that as
They're called
a
transhumanists.
turning point where perhaps you can live for virtually ever. Um, the Singularity. There's a book called The Singularity by forget the fellow's name now. He's the one who created the technology for voice recognition. Ray Kurzweil,
Yes,
um,
I'm familiar with them.
uh, several years ago, wrote this book, The Singularity, but it addresses exactly what you're saying now. Um, I'm not sure. I think maybe that's a different tangent, but we do that. Um, but I find it very interesting, the points you bring up about animal rights, and in a way, what you're saying is, you're trying, you're trying to create a new algorithm for society that looks at
Exactly.
animals in a
I
different
didn't
way.
get that. Could you try again?
I don't know what that was, but um, that looks at animals a different way.
What was
And
that?
that can be a good thing. The hard part is how do you change society? But I understand what you're saying is these people are very committed, and they are taking action to enlighten others about animals. Um, Not everyone will agree, and part of the I think for me anyway is having this discussion is an excellent exercise, if you will, to be able to hear others' opinions that may or may not agree with. There may be people who listen to this and not agree. There may be people who are very in sync with you. Uh, but um, I mean, I think I've learned
I
something
don't have an answer for
talking to
that.
you.
Is there something else I can help with?
Do you hear that?
Yeah.
Hmm. I don't have an answer.
I don't know why that's coming on, that voice. Um,
I
so,
don't understand. I know
can you
why
hear that,
that's coming
Rodney?
on the voice,
Yeah.
but I could
Yeah.
search the web for it.
It's from
Right.
your end.
I know. I hear. Okay, I got it off now. Um, so, uh, in ending this very interesting conversation, what what would you say to young people now? What advice would you give them, gi- given the experiences you have had? Um, and would could do you have in mind any advice that you might want to send out there to young people?
Well, it's a tough one. We haven't talked about veganism that much, but I think
Okay, we can go there.
uh, I think it's important to relate it to your question. Um, Animal rights today is not nearly as topic of conversation in a general culture as veganism is. Now, veganism is being synonymously used with with food, but it's not just food. I mean, you know, food is part of it, meaning vegans are eat plant-based food and no animal products. But veganism is beyond that. It's not using any animal exploitation, no leather, not going to zoos. I mean, so that's very much related to animal rights. But there is a trend more and more about spreading the word of veganism. There's a lot of activism, um, mostly peaceful. Um, I'm not sure whether it's really going to work. I think the tremendous amount of pressure that exists in society and culture into eating animal products, even though I don't know if you know about this, there is you can actually grow meat now in the lab. It's just been approved. You can create meat in a lab. I mean, indistinguishable from regular meat.
Oh,
And
wow.
actually, the USDA just approved, uh, after studying it, chicken to be marketed. And there are restaurants in Singapore that are already serving it. So there is a few. I mean, there is plant-based meat. You can buy hamburgers and chickens that are made of plant. They don't taste exactly the same. I don't eat that stuff. But lab meat apparently is being you know touted as being something that's going to happen more and more, specifically to curb the environmental factors of animal agriculture. I'm not sure. I'm not sure whether it's going to work or not. All I think is going to happen is, even if it gets cheap enough to be competitive with meat that is being highly subsidized. I mean, meat is expensive apparently right now, but if you look at the cost of meat theoretically without subsidization, you'd be talking about $30, $40 a pound. I mean, it's highly subsidized. I mean, if you just let the market force take its act, most people couldn't afford it, and that's the way it should be. There are people that are saying, you know what, let's get young people to become vegan. Let's educate them. And actually, if you look at children, they're they're very pro animal. They're they like animals, and not until you get enculturated into this society where you treat animals as property and as below us, and you can eat them. Most people, believe it or not, most people don't know when they buy meat that they're eating animal flesh. Did you know that?
I would
When you
imagine,
tell a
yes.
child
You
that,
never think of it. You never
yeah,
think, "Oh, I'm eating a
yeah,
cow."
when you show a child that they've actually killed an animal, and that's why they'll never show, especially children, slaughterhouses or anything like that. That actually what they're eating is killing an animal. They will refuse to eat it.
Right,
They're so
right. Yeah.
compassionate and so sensitive,
Well, they're
so
more
we shield
sensitive.
them.
So you would, it sounds like your advice is, it would be for young people, young children to become more, it's an easier transition for a young child to become vegan or
That's
vegetarian.
so my point was going to be, Marty, that that's very difficult to do. As a matter of fact, there are organizations that are trying to change the menu of elementary schools to be more plant-based and all that, and integrate that in education. There's a high level of resistance. Now, I have to say this. I didn't say this before, but having been aware of what's going on the last dozen years, in a way, it's becoming a living hell for me. I mean, literally, the transformation is that drastic. It's really waking up one day and realize that you've been sleeping for most of your life. Um, that you've been eating stuff that you know that it's meat that comes from animals, but you don't even think about it. You just go ahead and cook it and eat it, and it tastes good, and you you know you cultivate a taste for it, and you like it. Personally, I was never crazy about it, but that's part of the culture, and so you never went against the culture. It's almost impossible. I mean, I was just reading some articles about how now veganism is becoming a protected class because of the bias and the anti-veganism that exists out there. Um, People think that vegans are radical. I mean, you have people that 99% of the population that kill animals to eat, to cook flesh, so they can put it in their mouth for a 10-second pleasure. Okay,
Would
and
you say that there has been some real progress? Because if everyone notices that the people have vegan items on many menus. There are
yeah, the problem with that,
stores
Marty, the problem
that
with that,
cater
Marty,
to
is that
vegan.
most of those people, believe it or not, first of all, only like 1 or 2% of the population in general in the world are vegans. Now, when we talk about vegans, there are three types of vegans. There are the ethical vegans that are usually associated with animal rights, meaning it is not ethical to eat animal based products or use products that are made from animals because it's not ethical to kill animals. But then there are the environmental climate change vegan and then the health vegan. I mean,
Right.
plant based vegan
Uh-huh.
is very healthy for you. It's reversed cancers, it's reversed diabetes, it's reversed heart attacks and heart failures and heart, you name it. It is the best.
How has it affected you? Have you, you
Yeah, I've been a
personally?
vegan for 12 years and uh, you digest food much more quickly. You go to the bathroom a lot more often. Um, you feel very light.
Uh-huh.
I mean, and so I mean, I was a runner for a very long time until I adopted Bella, which I can't run very too much now. But anyway, so going back to kids, I think it's going to be very difficult. I think what the recidivism of veganism is very, very high. So what happens is people begin to adopt a plant-based or vegan life, and then they get pressured. For instance, I don't go to restaurants. I haven't gone to a restaurant in 12 years. I refuse to eat with people that are eating animal products. I don't go to weddings. I haven't gone to any social occasions with my family members. They understand. They think I'm crazy, but that's the way it is.
Yes, you're
Now,
committed. Yeah.
yeah, I am
Yeah.
committed. I think to me, what's a life worth living for? I mean, I've done my thing. I
Uh-huh.
retired. I don't need the money. And what else am I going to do with my time? Try to make life better for humans so they can go ahead and kill animals and eat them? I mean, what else are you going to do with your time? So I decided to use my time to help the ones without a voice, the animals. And once I make a commitment, you're right. I make a commitment. But so the recidivism is very high. So I don't have great hopes that people in the vegan world they say we're going to create a vegan world. They want to create this utopia where
Right.
veganism, you know, so there are laws out there trying to, make people eat plants because it's healthier and all that. But, you're never going to stop eating meats. And, most items that you buy today, there are animal products in it and you don't even know about it. Your
Right.
tires have vegan products, your candy, it's hidden from you. Everything that you buy almost as animal products.
Right.
And
You brought up an interesting topic of utopia, and it's I don't know if you have any comments on this, but let me explain. The difference between reform and revolution. Um,
right,
so, an example of reform would be someone like Martin Luther King,
right,
who saw the system and knew there were real uh, uh, problems with it for African Americans and wanted to change it. And the way he changed it was um, integrating into society, and he had that vision. At the same time, there were Black revolutionaries who wanted to
Malcolm X.
upend the whole system. Um, it's similar to like the Bolsheviks. Well, they were the social revolutionaries who looked at the ills of industrial society, and they came up with a utopian idea that would solve all
Right.
the issues. And generally, those efforts don't don't help. They lead to a lot of violence, a lot of suffering. So, that is an issue. What would you say to that? What would you say about that? I mean, it sounds
I
like,
well,
you recognize the reforms and you're very happy with the reforms and you want them to continue.
actually, I don't agree with either one. I mean, first of all, I agree with everything you just said. And actually, there is a lot of looking at other movements in the animal rights vegan movement in terms of both, the blacks and women. And So that goes back to human nature. I just came to and there isn't enough discussion in the animal rights movement, the vegan movement about this. See, inherently of what you just said of the utopia is, yeah, first of all, a lot of people in veganism and animal rights are left of center. These are very leftists. A lot of them are Marxists. They're communists. They're anti-capitalists. I mean, I don't take an ideology. I'm not pro-capitalism, no, or nor communism. But the overwhelming majority, they align themselves with other movements. They really believe they are what are called the intersectionalists. They believe that for veganism to really thrive and create this utopia, they have to align themselves with these other movements, and they have to eradicate speciesism. And again, there isn't the hidden uh, understanding there is that they lack understanding of human nature. See what you just said. They
Mhm.
don't look at the Bolshevik. They don't understand that. To me, humanity is irredeemable. It goes back to the algorithm. Okay, so I don't believe in creating a vegan world. I really believe that I do what I do and I do my best, but I'm very pessimistic because I think my theory is that the human species is going to die out. Okay, it could be 10,000 years, 100,000 years, whatever it is. The human species is limited. I mean, and you can go back to other prehistoric hominids. They've lived for hundreds of thousands of years, millennia, and they're gone. Okay,
Right.
I think we're going to self-destruct.
Eventually, sure, the Earth will be gone, right? The sun
What's
will
that?
def eventually, the Earth will be gone, sure. It is a matter of timing.
Yeah, but we're talking about degree. The Earth's going to be gone in millennia. I don't think we have millennia before. I mean, millions of years. We're talking about you know thousands of years, 100,000 of years. Uh,
Right.
I think as a species we'll be gone. Now we're trying to escape the planet. We're going to go to the moon. We're going to go to Mars and all that. But it's trying to escape yourself. You know, no matter where you go, there you are, as they say.
That's
You,
right.
you
Well,
can't.
this is uh, uh, I'm not sure where to go from here. I think we're going down a little sidetrack. You're right about,
No, actually,
eventually.
it is about human nature. See, as I said before, understanding animal nature in a way is understanding the animality in us or the lack of animality in us. See, I think in terms of evolution, we sort of went a separate way from the rest of the animal quote unquote kingdom. And we're going down a path that I'm not sure we're going to reverse. And so to me, not only the way I live, I believe the way we can reverse it or slow it down is to lead a very simple, work towards a very simple life, simplicity, to curb our appetites. In a way, it's very religious, is to mortify the
Right. I
self.
mean, it sounds like a monastic life.
It is, yeah. I mean, there are monastic communities, and I think I would like to see very much like the Amish or the communities that are abstain from eating any animal products that live within the nature. It's like a back to nature kind of a thing, but with an intelligence, with an awareness of what we are and what are we here to do as humans, to be caretakers, to be guardians, not not to just devour ourselves and the planet. We're killing ourselves. It's not going to end. We have this uh, very aggressive, destructive nature in us, and the weapons that we're using is becoming more and more destructive. And so, again, going back to understanding animals in a way is understanding ourselves because we're animals, and we don't
Right.
want to admit that.
So it just struck me that this whole movement could have a very positive impact on
Exactly.
society because you're by becoming more sensitive to animals that are non-human animals. Um,
You become
it
sensitive to other humans.
you become sensitive to other people. You see
Yeah,
the
and I
connect.
sense that. I see
You
that.
see you have less separation from yourself
Exactly.
and the rest of the world. Um, Very interesting, Rocky. This has been a great conversation, and you brought up some great issues that most people I don't think are aware of, and I'm not sure how that will evolve, um, but I think going forward it could have a very positive impact, and that's what I would hope for.
Yeah, I think the big issue right now, I think from bringing it back to today, there are people that are really striving very hard in the legislative legal realm is to, and this is going to be a big one. As long as you remove animals as being property, as long as we have animals as being property, we're doomed. Okay, we need to remove that. We need to change hearts and minds and laws. But even with the laws, it doesn't necessarily mean that people are going to follow it. Okay. So, I mean, we have a lot of laws that say don't harm people or whatever. We still do it and nothing happens. Nobody follows the law anymore these days. But to me, from a practical point of view, in terms of what I would like to see, rather than talking about, utopia or whatever, is I would like to see people's perception change in how they see these creatures from the smallest ant, fruit fly. You know that 50% of our genetic DNA is the same as a fruit fly? 50%.
Right. Well, I think, Rocky, this is a good place to leave off with
Okay.
that idea of being more sensitive to these other life forms, and it can have a very big fall-on effect for all of us.
Yep.
Um,
To
and
change your perception.
you made me a little more sensitive just in the conversation.
But
So
great.
maybe we'll have a follow-up on this. You can
Maybe we'll have part two
come
after
back
you
and tell us
you
more about what some of the changes are. But
yeah,
it really has been a pleasure speaking with you.
it's my
Um,
pleasure to have talked to
and
you. Your great minds connect.
connect, exactly, right. And hopefully the other people will get something out of it.
So have you written your blog about this yet or not?
No, it will be coming out in the next week or so.
Okay. Are
So
you writing it now or are you going to write it after
now
this?
I will be. I will be a little prelude to our
Okay.
conversation, but I'll show it to you.
All
Um,
right.
Well, goodbye for now,
All
everyone.
right,
And
buddy.
again, Rocky, it's great to see you. I haven't seen you for a
Marty,
while.
you
Great.
haven't
But
changed. You haven't changed that much. I'll tell you.
neither of
How are you
you.
feeling?
Well, that's another topic. Take care.
Take care. Bye, buddy.
Bye bye.